Well, quick update. Ah, guys, I don't pretend to be some whiz on this kind of stuff. I do have some short sightedness from time to time. The name OSG, which is my namesake channel, stands for Original Saturn Guide. Now, I didn't give myself that title. It was given to me years ago because on some forums, apparently people like to give you a bunch of hell, and then when you give it back just as good or better, they hate your guts. And so I got off all the forum stuff for the most part. And, but, it's a tongue-in-cheek, right? Original Saturn Guide. I'm nobody in this. I mean, I've done some firsts and things like that and had some whatever. It doesn't really matter. But guess what? So, to rehash, I had a front mount T25 on here a couple different ways. One was the original turbo kit I had. The other was a log manifold that I built, and so on and so forth. Front mount T25, right? And that's a little bitty turbo. That's the one that's off the Mitsubishi. Actually, it was the turbo that was off of a Mitsubishi Eclipse. I even had the intercooler, a side mount intercooler, buried off over here where the the evaporative canister is at on these cars. And it was great. It worked great. Too great almost, because first and second gear were pretty much worthless. And so I ended up, always having to race from 30, 40 miles an hour. I beat 3 different Mustangs one day on a highway down here in where I live. And so it had some guts. It was pretty quick. It's a light car. And anybody who drives these Saturns knows that they are. This is a dual overhead cam engine. This is actually a 97 SC1. So it's got basic roll-up windows, none of the, electric, nothing. I mean, it's light, so that's why my plate says what it does, power to weight. So I rocked that for a while. I did want to be able to race from a dig. And so it was right about the time that I did the rear mount setup, and the turbo I chose for that was a straight up T3. Now that T3 that I had was an old T3 that a guy had clipped the turbine housing on. And yes, that was the one I was going to use on my my 95 coupe. But I got the T4. I was going to run the T4. And so that turbo was put on the car. The other one came off, and it was the one that I was going to use on this one. But because of the clipped turbine wheel and everything I'd read on clipping turbine wheels and what you're getting for that, obviously these cars aren't high RPM cars, so to get advantage of a clipped turbine housing, it's going to help with upper end flow. Well, that's not what I needed so much. So anyway, I ended up getting a different T3. The T3 housing on that, there was one that I got, I forget what the housing was. I think that was a Garrett. It was a Garrett one. I forgot what the housing was on the compressor side. I think it was a 64. I don't remember, honestly. But anyway, I did a little bit of research, and I got a T3, and that had a 0.5 AR for compressor and 0.48 AR for turbine. Okay, so it actually, for this application here, y'all have seen the videos where it spools up and stuff. It was instead of being like first and second gear useless, you could take off first, second gear, no problem, but the boost came on way too late in the game. You're going to get left behind. You need to move the power band back toward, mid, somewhere 3,000 RPM, the boost comes on. And with it being a rear mount turbo, I knew there was some boost lag that was going to be coming there, but all the videos I'd saw, the STS turbo videos and all that stuff, it came down to picking the right size turbo. I didn't do any studying. I didn't do any computations or anything like that. I just put a T3 on there so I could have the ability to flow 350 horsepower, the ability to have the power band, mid to higher, something like that. And I got that, but it just did not build it up quick enough. Okay. And that ran great. Air temps were always low and all that stuff. So as you know, I just put this GT2871 on. I measured the inducer and exducers on both sides, put it through Grok on X, and that damn thing, I don't know if y'all have used that or not, but it is fantastic. I mean, I was always kind of fearful or kind of negative towards AI and all this stuff, but that thing is amazing. You ought to just give it a try sometime if you haven't. But at any rate, it verified it was a GT2871. It's not a Garrett. It's not, the actual, but it's an eBay turbo. It's what I've always rocked for the most part, and they're good. And so T25 too little, T3 too big. So let's go somewhere in the middle, and I explained that in a prior video. So I figure, okay, what's in between that? Well, a GT28, but the 28s, they do have that. It's a little bit bigger than the T25. Look, I'm just going to tell you, I got it because I heard it was good for Nissan Silvas. I think it was a Silvia, the Disco Potato. It's a famous turbo, GT2860, 2871. They're all pretty close. Some boost quicker, 500 RPM quicker than others. And so I ended up doing that. I paid zero attention to the AR housings, zero, because I'm thinking GT28, it's going to be a smaller turbo, right? Overall, it's just going to be a smaller turbo. And so smaller turbo, figure, okay, problem solved. It's going to spool up quicker. It's going to move the power band closer to 3. I get full boost then, and it'll all be fixed and done. And I paid no attention to the turbine housing. That turbine housing, remember I was saying the T3 I had a .48 turbine? This thing's got like a .67. I was like, I'm not upset with anybody but myself. I can't believe I did that. So I didn't even think about it. I said, this has got to, it's a smaller turbo. It's not a T3. So that's when I really got into that Grok thing, started checking with X, and instead of relying on a bunch of different forums and things, and you'll probably come back and say, well, that's what X does. X searches a bunch of forums, gets a bunch of compilation information, and throws it up on you. I think that's true, but at the same time, it wasn't. I wish I could show you what it did. I mean, it went through, it took every parameter that I have, what my horsepower goals were, what fuel system I'm using, fuel pump, all that stuff, and it came out, and it suggested that I use either a .42 or a .48 T28 to T25 housing, and they are available. I started to go with the .48, and I think that would have been okay. That's what the T3 I had on here was. But I thought, okay, well, yeah, I want to boost sooner than later. And Grok said that the .42 will still give me my 350 horsepower goal. A little bit of extra back pressure, obviously, because it's a smaller AR, .42 versus a .48. But the compressor on the other side is where it comes into play too, the compressor size. So I ordered the turbine housing, so I'll get it here, swap it over. But let me tell you, man, remember I was telling you when I was coming back from that racetrack, I hit it, it barely did anything. I hit it again, it did nothing. I said, okay, boost leak, intake leak. That got me going down the road of finding these little vacuum leaks and all this other stuff. So the benefit in doing that was I actually found a bunch of leaks and fixed them. Still got to address this flange leak down side here. I still got to do that. I'm going to do that when I do the turbine housing swap. I was just being lazy. Plus, I said that right there shouldn't affect what happens back there that much. So anyway, I ran with it. It was good I did, so I didn't, think my problem was still up here. So I ordered the T25 housing. It's a .42 AR. So I'm hoping that, and it said I should see full boost around $3,000. Back pressure will increase slightly, obviously. Still 350 horsepower goals possible. because it's going to flow enough. And it was taking all these things into consideration. It was throwing numbers at me that I didn't even want, really. You know, it's just so much information. But so, but coming back from that racetrack that night, you know, I wasn't having any boost response. Went down this road, took it out last Sunday, and I said, you know what, I fixed these leaks. Let's see, did anything change? And I got out there, man, and I hit that gas. I got it in 3 grand, left RPMs up higher than 3 grand, and just got on it, and I waited. Finally, around 4,200, here comes the boost. I will say, and I think this is going to matter with the compressor side, when it came on, it did actually, it felt to me, unlike the T3 I had on there, it felt like the boost, like the island or the efficiency, it was up quickly, whereas before I felt like the T3 I had to shift, and it felt like I was just really getting into the building of the power side of it. And so I think this is going to work out good. I really do. The way it was building boost when it finally did build. So I came back, realized all this, kicked myself in my butt, and got to looking, you know. So a few more dollars. Now this one, sadly, the turbo I bought, the GT2871, was a 120 direct from Max Speeding Rod. This housing, though, I couldn't find it. It wasn't that easy to find, a .42. So it was 206 or 208 from a place called Mamba Racing. So that should be here Tuesday. I'm going to get it, put it on here, and I'll report the findings. And the whole reason I'm doing this is so that if anybody here wants to do the rear mount, then this is the sweet turbo or the sweet formula for the best boost response. And look, guys, more than 350 horsepower on these front wheel drive cars, you're just going to be like those Hondas, you know, just 600, 700 horsepower. You hear them all the time, you know, they first, second, third, they're just sitting there spinning wheels. I mean, it's useless. And so I want usable power. I want fun power. I want street power. This isn't an all-out drag race car. I want to be able to use it and just, you know, enjoy it and feel the power where it needs to be, and red line is safe and all that good stuff. So it's a tame application, basically. So here we go again. I'm going to make that swap. Hopefully it's all green light. If it is, I'm going to put in the Det 3. Okay, well, I'll fix that flange there. Put in the Det 3 and see if I can get that thing to work on here. If I can, then it's 550 cc injector time, and we're going to run the boost up. Okay, so there you go. You know, I admit when I'm wrong and when I'm stupid. You guys, y'all remember that? The Saturn Homecoming. That was the second Saturn event. I have it on there just as kind of a memento. So in case you guys were going to follow my path and say, oh, that OSG guy, he knows his stuff, I'm going to follow him and then be like, oh man, that guy don't know crap. This car ain't going nowhere. I just wanted to catch it before you guys start doing anything. I doubt most of you will, obviously. But here's what I told myself. If this didn't work, it's front mount time again. I've had my run with that rear mount stuff. I was the first one to run nitrous on the Saturn. Okay, toot my horn. I was one of 3 people to turbo the Saturn. Okay, first. Some guy in California, Alex Leva, I think was his name. And there was another guy named Brandon Slater, maybe. I don't know. I don't mean to murder their names. He was the kit. He was the kit's guinea pig, and nothing was divulged until many months, years later, when you found out that turbo kit blew his motor like twice or something. And then I was the third, and of course I popped mine on 3 psi. Yes, 3 psi. There's a book called Corky Maximum Boost by Corky Bell. There's a literal paragraph in there that says turbos that are small can build boost before the PCM has a chance to add fuel, from negative manifold to positive 3 psi. And all these years I just thought, man, what did I do? That guy said that was safe for my car. It was like a 5 or 7 pound kit. I forget what it was. And I never understood why that happened. I was ridiculed in the Saturn community, you know, and it was because it was an OBD1 computer, so slower to respond, little bitty T25 Chrysler turbo, so it spooled up real quick. There was no intercooler. The guy said, oh, you don't need an intercooler. You don't need an intercooler. there was an option for one, but he said, oh, you don't need it. And so popped my motor after multiple tries to fix it, for changing fuel pressure regulators, putting on a Kenny Bell booster pump. I mean, I was doing everything in the world to try to make that thing work. And there was nobody around to help me, obviously, because there just weren't that many people. And fast forward to today, I'm the first to run a rear mount turbo in these cars. What does all that get you? What does all being a pioneer get you? A lot of arrows in your back, so, and it's okay. I just reminisce sometimes, like I've told you before, if you're ever with your project and you ever get to the point where you feel like you're just kind of stymied and you're not going anywhere, stop, drop, and think about what all you've done up to that point. You'll find that you've done a lot, and so to kind of help you kind of strive on. But anyway, I'll update you shortly.